Well, hello, I'm Pete Kramer with Pete Kramer Media, and this is Lights Up, the high school theater podcast. I'm so happy to welcome Halle Mastroberardino to the podcast today. Uh, Welcome, Holly.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
So Halle is a quintuple threat. She sings, she dances, she acts, she choreographs, and she directs. Do you do windows too?
I could if you needed me to.
I was looking back. I guess I've known you more than a dozen years, back to when you were that triple threat theater kid that everybody knew from Harrison. You graduated in 2014?
Yes,
Is that right?
graduated from Harrison in 2014.
And I would see you on stage in Harrison, then later in the season I'd see you on stage at Stepanak. It was one of those kind of double dip things.
Yep.
We're here today to kind of talk about your journey a little bit, but also talk about the Rees Awards, which just announced their top 50, 51, 50
Yes, 50.
people that are moving on to Roger Rees weekend, which is next weekend, May 16 and 17 in at Symphony Space, I think. Are they at Symphony Space the whole weekend?
So they use the Professional Performing Arts High School for the Friday and Saturday rehearsals, and then Sunday will be at Symphony Space for the big showcase. So yeah,
Great.
Very exciting.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your journey. You go to Harrison High School. You're that kid, and junior year, I think you were also the first person I ever saw get a promposal.
Yes.
I think that was on Crazy for You on the set. Luke Pedagano.
So mine was my senior year. When we did Chorus Line, you had come to film our rehearsal,
Right.
And I got totally surprised by a promposal by my best friend, even still to this day, Lucas Petinato.
Petinato. There you go. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I was like, wow, that's really. We didn't do that back in the day.
Right.
Back in the horse and buggy days. So as a junior, you're playing Polly in Crazy for You, and this thing, they were then called the Gershwin Awards, comes up. What did you know about them back then? Because now everybody's got an award show. Everybody, you turn
Right.
around, you sneeze, and somebody's created an award show. But back then, what was your perspective on that?
Yeah, so I had found out first about the Jimmy Awards through PBS did a documentary on the Jimmys called Broadway or Bust. And I'm pretty sure it was my sophomore year of high school. That summer it had come out, and watched it as if it was the coolest thing ever. It was like, oh my gosh, this looks awesome. And my mom was actually like, how do you do this? How do we get you to do this? And got on Google, and we found the Gershwin Awards. And at the time they were only for the New York City area. And I'm pretty sure my mom called up whoever was in charge at the time and was like, we live in Westchester, can she come? And at that point they were looking for more schools and students to join them. So they said, yeah, sure. Let them go. So Lucas and I actually got to go to the Gershwins, and it was a one-day event. I'm pretty sure we were down at Chelsea Studios, which I don't think exists anymore. And it was in a studio, and we learned an opening number. And then I'm pretty sure there were so few kids involved that everyone got to sing a little, snippet, 32-bar cut from their show. And there was a panel of judges, and our families got to come and watch, and my mom and dad were there, and they announced their day of that. Myself and the other student, Harold, got to go to the Jimmys, and yeah, it was wild. I think at the time I wasn't going, obviously I'd wanted to be able to experience the Jimmys, but never thought oh, I'm going to win this. It wasn't I wasn't gunning for it. I was it was my first experience of being around, people who were just as invested in their school's musical as I was.
Sure.
And I do think that the New York City schools, there's LaGuardia and PPAS, and those students who are super invested in the arts and in, pursuing this as a career. It was the first time I was able to be around a community like that on sort of a bigger musical theater scale. And then, getting to go to the Jimmys was just an incredible experience. And I think something I needed at that young age to be able to oh, I have work to do. There's work to do here, to be inspired by people that were just so incredibly talented.
So I mean, the Jimmys are the National High School Theater Musical Theater Awards, founded by the Nederlander group and Pittsburgh CLO, and I think was Broadway Education Alliance involved in the. They might have
Yes.
maybe just the Nederlanders, but so you go basically from talk about this, because I think this is kind of important for kids to know and parents to know. You jumped from 3 very specific ponds into the next pond. You
Mhm.
go from Harrison, where you're the girl. We can say that. You were the kid that everybody looked to. You were the leads, and you with reason. You know what you're doing, and you're a theater kid. Then you go to the Gershwin Awards, slightly bigger pond, not as big as it is now.
Mhm. For
But
sure.
and then you go on to the Jimmys, which is national, which is probably back then it might have been like 40 something schools. Now I think it's up to 60 or something like that for
Yeah.
the Jimmy Awards. But talk about how you battle imposter syndrome, right? Like, look at this girl can put her leg over her, touch the ceiling and that sort of thing. Talk about how you made that adjustment, how difficult that was, and how you kind of had to talk yourself into that headspace where you were like, no, I'm here. I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah. It's interesting when I think about my time at the Jimmys, I didn't really have, I was so fortunate at Harrison to have just a wonderful arts program, but I didn't have anyone at the school who knew what I was getting myself into. And I don't even think I knew what I was getting myself into. And I can remember showing up to the Jimmys and, you're thrown in the deep end, you're learning music, you're getting, broken up into groups and, watching fellow performers get up there and knock my socks off to the point where, like you said, it was very easy to go oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to measure up here. And
Sure.
I think that when I was there were professionals working with us, some of the accompanists, the music directors, our coaches that I think could tell that maybe that was going on for me, and had a lot of people check in to be like, hey, you're doing a great job, right? Maybe try this, that, and the other thing. And when that started to happen, when they would sort of pull me aside and give me a couple things to think about, I think it sort of instilled in me this hunger of okay, I'm probably not going to be a finalist, right? I was very real with myself of I see where I fit in this pond, right? In this humongous pond.
Right.
And so instead of getting upset and being scared of, not getting to the point that I want to get to, I'm just going to watch everybody and learn everything I can.
Right.
And it's funny. My year was chock full of people who are currently on Broadway, who are absolutely killing it, superstars. And I'll never forget, it was our dress rehearsal still in the studios. At the time it was at NYU. And it was the first time I had encountered Eva Noblezada at the Jimmys. And there were girls freaking out about things that had changed and people changing their costumes and their wigs and their this and their that. And I can remember her and I just kind of sitting there and being like, this is so cool. And kind of being you know what? That's going to happen. I feel that happens everywhere, right? Even
Sure.
in the high school theater space, there's
Right.
that moment of panic that comes. But I think going through the Jimmy's experience helped me learn that even if I'm not going to take away from this what I thought I was going to take away from it, I can learn so much and take so many other awesome things with me, that that's more than enough. Sort of
Right.
feeling good with, whatever comes of this is what I'm meant to take from it. That's kind
It
of
sounds a little bit like your senior show chorus line. It sounds like everybody going in and trying to impress each other, watching what each other have, and then kind of trying to find your place in the room. It's really fascinating. I think the idea, the pressure that's inherent in this, and I think that's it comes with the territory, I suppose, but it's going to prepare you for being in an audition room. In an audition room, I've talked about this with a bunch of kids who've gone through these programs before. an audition is basically your job. It's not the end. It's what you do for a living. You audition for a living. This is what you do. And the more opportunities you can get to be in a room where the stakes are getting high and you can perform, and you can also leave it at the door when you leave and say, I did what I needed to do, and I'm done now. That sounds really healthy, and it sounds like a 62-year-old man who's not going to be auditioning for anything ever again. but how hard is it to put yourself in that Halle and Eva space where you're kind of just kind of fly on the wall watching it all happen? Was that a hard adjustment for you to make?
Yeah, I know for me as a kid, I spent a lot of time like thinking that I wasn't enough, or that, I wasn't going to be able to achieve the things I wanted to achieve. And that for me felt like the first time that I understood, like I could waste my time on that, or I could, soak up all of the things I'm missing when I'm focused on that. So it's definitely challenging. And I find I do still audition myself.
Right.
I find that, to sit in the room waiting with, sometimes hundreds of people, you have to learn sort of how to negotiate with yourself mentally and emotionally, and, find things that work for you. And that definitely is a challenge, and something that, now as the educator, I try to say, like, that's happening over there, but if you need to take a second, right? It's like figuring out how to take care of yourself when that pressure is building, and when, the lid is coming off the pot a little bit.
Give yourself a release valve, something that does that. Is there a, this is going to sound goofy in Hollywood, but is there like a mantra or something you say to yourself that you kind of say, or is it just kind of rolling with it?
Yeah. I actually have used Annalisa Lemming has a podcast called The Balancing Act that I really loved right out of school. I was working with a coach who is very good friends with her, and he was on an episode. And so I had listened, and I was like a devoted listener to this podcast. And she has a meditation that I have like saved on my phone. I'll be honest, I haven't done it in a while, but it sort of just gives like you said, the idea that, like, auditioning is our job. And if we go in with some sort of like desperation for whatever it is that we're going after, we're not going to be very successful. It definitely talks about sort of like, that, and really that thing of like, I am enough, right? However I feel is how I'm going to feel, all of that sort of like grounding stuff. I just try and stay like super grounded. It's very easy to sort of get, away from myself and sort of into all of the other things going on.
Sure.
Just kind of trying to stay grounded and present. I think like that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, and it's you realize the stakes, but the stakes can't be your master, right?
Right.
You're in the room. You made it to the room. Congratulations. Everything else is gravy from now on. It's like I said, never going to audition for anything again. So I've seen you. I was covering the Rockettes for like 6 months. I did a thing about getting in the line, and they were looking to diversify the line. And who's in the lobby but Halle Mastroberardino? And I was like, oh my God, she's auditioning for the Rockettes. Of course she's auditioning for the Rockettes. That's what happens. That's what happens. That's that. But that experience of you being out there has helped you, as you said, as an educator. Now you're back at Harrison. You're directing the show, the musical. This year you did a little show called Les Miserables.
Yeah, it's a tiny guy.
Just a small little thing, nothing big. What's that experience been like? Because you're back in your home turf. You're talking to kids. You're working with people who were your teachers when you were there. Deb Totita, right? And was Meg Test there when you were there?
She came in the year after I left, so we've seen each other a bunch, but yeah.
Right. So that experience has got to feel like bizarre. But what do you bring to that? I guess you bring all of those audition times and all the times you were on that stage doing that, and that must be, you speak the same language as these kids, and you've been in the rooms that they want to be in, which is huge. Talk a little bit about about that ride and what kids are like these days, as opposed to when, that triple threat kid I knew from way back when.
Yeah. It's been really kind of like fascinating to be able to re-enter the space that I basically lived in high school, walking into the HPAC and having to figure out sort of like what my role is now, has been a really awesome sort of like, it feels like an experiment the last 2 years, trying to trust that, Debbie has asked me to come in and trust that I can do this. Something that Mary Poppins we did last year was the first show I directed by myself. I've been the, associate director, the assistant director, but I've never sort of had both reins, and been the only one in the driver's seat.
Right.
And it was challenging and so rewarding to be able to take the skills that I learned in college and, through all of those experiences I had in high school, to be able to, pass that on to this next generation of kids has just been really exciting. And it's something that like energizes me and, keeps me inspired in my own sort of like artistry, being able to, see them soak up the stuff that I am now like passing on through the people who taught me has been really cool. And I think that students, the thing that I've found is there's a little, and I'm sure just given, COVID and of the world that we live in, there's sometimes a bit of a disconnect to like certain things either in the script or in the music that feel inherent to me, or like, almost like a little bit of like, yeah, that's what that means. Of course, that's what that means. And there's a disconnect that then as the director or, even as the choreographer, sometimes I love being able to sort of like get creative about how I can explain it to them. And if it doesn't work the first time, like really being on the same level of as they are and being like, okay, let's try this thing instead. Like, and seeing how ready they are to sort of experiment and play around. And even I just associate directed Come From Away at Stepanak, and that show is written so specifically, and some of the jokes need to be in this sort of like rhythm, and working on one moment with these two boys like over and over and over again.
So take me through that. Take us to that moment in the rehearsal room. What was it? What was the scene about? And kind of paint that picture for us.
Yeah, so it's the characters of Bob, and I don't even know if this person has a name in the script, but he's supposed to be a Newfoundlander from Newfoundland. And Bob has been told to take the grills out of people's backyards, and he's worried that someone is going to shoot him in the back. And the guy comes out and is like, are you stealing my barbecue? And they kind of go back and forth, and he ends up offering him a cup of tea at his house. He's like, the wife's got a kettle on. And I watched it the first time. I'm pretty sure Frank had done the scene. And I watched it the first time, and the townsperson came in real hot and was like, are you stealing my barbecue?
Right.
And I was like, I think he has to be like relaxed and intimidating, like as if he's gonna pounce, but he's not gonna pounce yet. And so I tried giving just that. I was like, come in real chill, real relaxed, like try to, figure that out. And then we sort of went from up here all the way down to there. I'm like, okay, and it's somewhere in the middle, right? Trying to sort of like give them a scale of like, okay, the kid's name is Kieran, who played the townsperson. All right, Kieran, like, let's figure out where and when do we jump to the, the big moment? When do we sort of do that? And it ended up kind of coming down to a timing thing with the other actor. I was so focused on him. And I was like, oh, Charles, try this instead. Like, really let him cut you off and like zip your lips so that his line can come in the clear. It was a lot of, and again, the experimenting of it all, right? That felt like a big experiment of timing and, making sure they understood the joke and the timing, and then being able to like make it happen. And really, it was fun, even in performance, from day to day, I'd be like, whispering little cues to them to try to just tighten it up even more. So, as we go on, Frank is big about, giving notes through the whole time. And so I was like, we can refine this even from weekend 1 to weekend 2. And they ended up doing a great job, always got a big laugh. It was a lot of fun to figure that out.
That was a great scene. Yeah. I was talking to Randy Schwartz, who directs at Suffern High School. Suffern's got a great theater program. And Randy said, one of the things coming out of COVID, and it may be, he said it may be TikTok more than COVID. He said, kids understand funny, but they don't understand comedy.
Yeah.
You know, so like the pie in the face, yeah, okay, that's funny, but it's not really comedy. And so he has them watch like old TV shows that he was raised on that have like, like my kids, when they see black and white, they like, forget it. There's no way I'm watching that. But there's so much to learn there. And it's it goes really to what you're saying, which is the timing, the muscle memory that you learn by seeing this sort of thing and experiencing it. And it's not the quick take. It's written, it's scripted, it's got a meter and a time to it that you have to honor, or you're going to lose the moment, right? That's really huge. I remember coming to Les Mis rehearsal and watching you stage. What was it? It was the Act One closer.
One Day More.
One Day More, right?
Yeah.
And how meticulous you were with every, all of your friends. My friends over here are going to be doing this. My friends over here are going to be doing that. My friend in the back, if you could look up more, that you're painting your picture, and the picture moves, and every time it moves, you've got another little kind of idea. And what if we tried this? And it was very. There's a lot of trust in that room, which is really important. And I think it speaks to the culture and also to how you understand that culture and how you fit into it. Let's talk about, so now you're helping you're choreographing or assistant directing at Stepanak for Frank Portanova, with Frank Portanova?
So I'm normally the choreographer, one of 3 choreographers there, but this year with Come From Away, I was like, this one doesn't really dance so much, so why don't I come in as the associate director, and I'll help sort of put everyone's things together at the end. So
great. Yeah. So you're also involved in the Roger Rees Awards in a totally different, like making the similar jump from student to teacher or organizer. Tell me what your role is now and how that came about and what your role is there.
Yeah, so since I won the Gershwin Award back in the day, I had always gone back and, gone to the ceremony for the Roger Rees Awards to just sort of support. I sometimes took over the social media. They always sort of found a job for me to have there and to be able to support the organization. And a few years ago, Theo Lensicki, who is the director and choreographer, had said, hey, will you come and actually be my assistant? Let's actually make this a thing. You're here basically doing that, but we want to make it official. And so I've worked with Theo the last couple of years, and I will do that again this year. I'll be his assistant director and choreographer of the ceremony. And I was also brought on this year as the coordinator of the New Faces program, which is a different awards track that the Roger Rees offers.
So there's the outstanding performer, male and female. There's the emerging artists. That's the second level.
Yep, runners up.
Grace Calmy from Pelham won that last year.
Yeah.
And then there's this new Faces, right?
Yes.
And there's also orchestra. There's also a student journalist thing. There's all not as many as the Metro Awards, which has 35 different categories. Right. It's not really the Roger Rees is more about individual performances and not about productions, right? Yes. So that's kind of where, and I gather that what happens is that every school is adjudicated. The adjudicators choose 2 from each school to go. They get into the pool. So last weekend, was the regionals on Long Island, New York City, and in Rockland, and from 190 or so kids, they winnowed it down to the top 50, and those are the people that will be at your weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, May 15, 16, 17.
Yep.
Right. Which happens to be the same weekend as Pedro's open mic. I'm just going to throw a plug in right there.
I know. I'm upset I can't split myself in half and be at both.
So that weekend, so you said your role when they come in on Friday, what's your weekend like that weekend, Halle?
Yeah, so Friday, everyone comes. I think the kids normally wear their show shirt to represent their school, and they'll do introductions, and immediately we start rehearsal for the opening number. So they'll do music, and we'll choreograph the entire opening number on that first night. Sometimes I think we even had time to like sprinkle in some closing number music rehearsal as well, depending on how quickly we move or not. And then Saturday morning, they get sort of broken up into groups and get coached on their material from their show. So it's like their solo that if they become a finalist, they'll get to perform. And from there, those judges, the music directors and the judge that they bring in to sort of coach the kids, break it down into the top, is it 6 finalists, 8 finalists?
So so there's judging going on Saturday morning as they're working with the kids. They see who's got what, and they can kind of figure that.
Yes.
Is it a formal thing, or is it more like I'm working with you and I'm noticing things?
I think it has a little bit of both sort of energy. I always like encourage anytime I've had a student go, like, the judge could give you something that we have never spoken about before, right? This is a fresh set of eyes. They might tell you to do something like brand new, and maybe it could throw you off, or it could excite you and energize you into something else. Like I feel like it's go in and just be open to everything. Again, that sort of like, don't go in with judgment, don't go in set in exactly what you did at your show and what you've been practicing over and over, because they might give you something to sort of like throw it on its head. I think it's a little bit more collaborative, and then obviously they are looking for that talent. But I mean, at that point, if you've made it through all of the rounds of adjudication up to there, that sort of feels like something you don't even necessarily have to worry about anymore.
Great. So then Saturday they go see a show. They still go see a show on.
Not with the Roger Rees. We will then continue rehearsal we'll review the opening number, review the closing number. Everyone will go, and then Sunday we'll meet back up at the at Symphony Space and have rehearsal there all day for spacing and walking through the ceremony with the kids. They call out just random people to become the finalists, so where to stand on the floor and how that will work when everyone does their solos. And then the ceremony is that night.
And they find out like live, they're on stage and they find out who's. It's like very much like Miss America kind of thing, like up and down kind of thing, right? Wow. Wow. That's is that the way they did it when you were a Gershwin kid?
Yes, I think so. It's so fun. I was like trying to think about like what was that day like, because I can't remember if everyone did their solos, because I'm pretty sure he sang like the whole song of Someone to Watch Over Me from Crazy for You. So I can't imagine. We must have done the opening number. We probably sang earlier in the day like they do now, and it narrowed down to the top 6 or how many ever it was, and then those people got to do their solos. But like I said, we were literally in a rehearsal studio, so we were not on stage. There were no like fancy lights or anything like that. Right. But the system still works, in a similar-ish way. They just sort of have like zoomed out incredibly to incorporate a little bit more of a professional look there.
So the ceremony is opening number and closing number, and what's in between there? Are the finalists are known early on, and then they do the performances?
Yeah, so they do opening number, and then everyone will stand in a nice little semicircle, and they'll call out the finalists. I think too. So they bring in a Broadway person to host. So Andrew Keenan Bolger is the host this year. So he'll get to talk about his experience and that sort of thing a bit.
Was he Crutchy?
Yes, he was
the original Crutchy from Newsies. Oh my God.
Yep.
This is gonna make you like 1 degree of separation from Crutchy. How amazing is that?
Very cool. He gets to announce the finalists, and then they'll perform their solos, and they have a brand new panel of Broadway professionals in the audience that score those performances. So that happens, and in between there's a choir award that's a part of the Roger Rees. So the choir that wins gets to come and perform. The New Faces honorees get to be recognized on stage. There's a teacher award that gets announced, and the teacher gets to accept that award and be recognized. There's I'm probably forgetting something. There's so many other things. The stage manager, fellowship students will get to be recognized, and then finally they will announce who the winners are.
Gotcha.
And like you said, there's the 2 outstanding performers, the 2 what was it? You said
Emerging artists?
Yes, emerging artists.
Right.
And then they added an award last year called the Starcatcher Award, which is kind of like the Jimmy's sort of does, like you said, it's like a pageant, the like Miss Congeniality, right? That sort of award. It's someone who has sort of stood out throughout the weekend, and to help them further their, arts education.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. And then so that's not, you're not done yet, because then a month later, you're at the Jimmys now. You're going to be helping Theo with the Jimmy Awards. What's your role going to be there?
Yes. So Theo he directs and choreographs the medleys that happen at the Jimmys that they're famous for. So I will go and be his assistant there for the medleys. So we run. And it's so funny. I'm, now getting reintroduced to how the Jimmys work now, which is very different from when I was there. There used to be one choreographer of the whole thing. Her name is Keisha Lalama, and Keisha actually taught at my college. So I love her.
Point Park in Pittsburgh. Shout out.
Yes, Point Park University. I'm pretty sure she just became like the dean of theater and animation and film. So she is taking on a lot of work at Point Park and in Pittsburgh. So she no longer does the Jimmys, but Theo was her assistant at the Jimmys. And I had even gone back a couple years ago, like I think it was 2019, and helped sort of clean the medleys. I had volunteered. I was like, Keish, what do you need? Like, I want to come. And that was the year that Casey Likes was there, who is now in Heather. So that was really cool to sort of dip my toe back in. And then now Theo has asked me to come and help him, craft the medleys that occur. So we'll have a busy weekend. They do a dance call early in the week. And then I just learned this year, they actually write the medleys midweek. There's sort of like another audition process that happens to see where the students will land in the numbers that they do at the Jimmys. So then there is a music team like furiously writing medleys to then be taught like Wednesday, I believe, or Thursday of that Jimmy's week. And then the actual ceremony happens on that Monday. So it's sure to be, 10 days of exciting, talk about that pressure cooker, sort of high energy musical theater vibes going on. But I'm so excited to go back.
That's great. That's great. And they're lucky to have you. So tell me, like, I always like to have kind of takeaways for kids, for parents, for teachers, from this. I think I want people to learn from this. So give us the benefit of your experience, having worn all those hats and been in all those rooms. Halle, what do people need to know about this process and how they should approach it?
Yeah, I think that, and this is interesting. It's something that I think was big at Harrison and really comes from Debbie and the higher ups at Harrison, that we do our musical at our school because we love theater and because it's exciting and we get to learn things from that experience. And there are these awards that we participate in. And I think that if you can really focus on the work that goes into putting on the musical and dive in and give it 100%, that if the Roger Rees nomination comes or if the Metro Award nomination comes, that is like the cherry on top, but it's not the thing that you need. And I think that a lot of the process, especially of the Roger Rees Awards, sort of goes back to what we were talking about before. You are auditioning again, right? You perform and you're adjudicated, and that's like a performance. But then you have to go and you have to audition again.
Mm-hmm.
That if you are bringing with you sort of that pressure of, I need to do this. I need to make it to the next thing. I need to win. I need to whatever. That's how you're going to show up in the room, right? That's how, when Theo is at the table and you go in and get to perform your song, I think you want to show up in a way of like, I've done this work and I'm excited to share it with you, right? That if we can sort of take that pressure not a way, because I think it can be healthy and it can help you sort of like be motivated to go. But if we find that balance of like, I know that's there and I'm going to show up in a way that it feels like me and I'm confident and I can do this, to sort of find the balance of the pressure and just really the passion, I think, of that you hold for what this is, that you are going to be infinitely more successful, and successful might look like not getting the Roger Rees Award nomination. But if you've walked in and gave it your all and left and felt like, you know what, I feel so good about that, or that I did that thing that I know is a habit and I'm going to go back and I'm going to work on that with my teacher at school, like that's the win. The award isn't necessarily the win, but the work and the continuing to grow, that like that's the thing to take away.
And what about parents? I mean, there are stakes involved here. This is, there are stage moms and dads, and I was a baseball dad, so I get it. I was bad. It was bad. But what can you say to them about helping to give that pressure valve for their student?
Yeah, I think part of it, and it's funny, I like think back to my own parents. Like my mom was so organized. She helped me know like, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're in control of, right? Here's the things that we can do. I feel like being in touch with, I have no say in if you make it to this next thing, but I'm going to make sure that you're hydrated and that you have a snack and that, if there's something that's making you emotionally distressed, we're going to try and relax, right? Sort of being able to, again, be that like grounding source for your kid. I feel like that's what my mom always did for me.
Right.
Was, I would start to get nervous and be worried, and she'd go like, you got it, right? You're okay. Like, or what do you need, right? Is there something you need for me to do that, to let them kind of try to have the reins this time, and to trust that they can do it and that they've done the work to get them this far, that they'll go and they'll keep doing that, I think it's a good experience. Like I said, in my experience going to the Roger Rees and the Jimmys, like to be able to feel like I'm in charge here, right? I'm doing this. I have the reins, that like to sort of give them the nudge and to be there if they happen to come back and need you to do something. I think like that's what I would have wanted, and was lucky to have as a kid.
That's just great. That's really, really helpful, because what it does is it puts ownership on the student and kind of asking them to be self-aware enough to realize what they need. What would help me right now?
Yeah.
What would help me right now is that water bottle. Could I just have that water bottle? Could we have 10 minutes where we think about, how I'm entering the room, or that sort of thing, or just from a help standpoint, not a pressure thing. I love that. And I loved what you said about the compartmentalizing this season. And the reason we do Pedro's open mic, which is May 16th at Harrison High School, the reason we do that the weekend before the Metro Awards is I want it to be really a celebration of what they've achieved. They've done something remarkable. They've put on a musical, and I don't want anything about award season to take away from that. They've done it. And I don't want any announcement, any nomination to color how they feel about what they've done. They've done something absolutely amazing. And I think it's important. The awards shows are great for what they are, but the movie is not the book, right? It's always a different thing. It's a different animal, and you have to look at it that way. I love the Metros and awards shows like that, because whenever do you get 1,000, 1,500 kids in a room singing show tunes? I love that. I love that about that. And Pedro's open mic is the same sort of thing. Everybody's singing Seasons of Love at the end. That's what it's about. It's in its purest form. It's what we're talking about. Oh, that's great. I think that's really, really helpful. Halle, is there anything else you'd want to say about the process, about your role in it, about your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think coming back to so many of the schools and the organizations that sort of fed me as a young theater person has been really rewarding to be able to, and really I'm working with the people who taught me how to do what I do. Frank introduced me to someone during the Step and Act show, and they were like, "Oh, you did the shows here?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've learned everything from him." Like, I watched him do what I'm doing now. Like, I take stuff from Frank, from Debbie, from Lynn, I mean, too many people to name. But now to be able to like come back to these organizations and be the thing that's going to continue them moving forward is just so special to me. And so I think it's a thank you to all of my teachers who got me here, that like everything I do every day, I'm like, oh, even if it's someone from college, my professor Ziva just popped in my head of like, I'll do things. I'm like, oh my God, I watched her do that during Into the Woods rehearsal, or, Debbie's voice in my head, like, clean that, or, what are you doing? Like, figure this out. We're going to figure it out together. Those moments are what keep me going, and I'm just excited to sort of be that next voice for that next theater maker who, in 10, 15 years from now is getting to do the thing. So yeah, really great.
That's awesome. So the Roger Rees Awards ceremony is Sunday, May 17th at Symphony Space, and then the Jimmy Awards are June 22nd. I want to say it's a Monday, June 22nd.
Yes.
And is that at the Palette? Where is that?
That happens at the Minskoff Theater.
The Minskoff.
Yep.
Gotcha. And Andrew Keenan Bolger is hosting the Jimmys this year.
He's hosting the Roger Rees.
Oh, the Roger Rees. I'm sorry. Do we know who's hosting the Jimmys?
I'm not sure if they've announced yet who's hosting the Jimmys. We'll have to go look at their Instagram.
You know what? It could be Halle Mastroberardino. She does everything else. She could be right up there. Well, Halle, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been great talking with you. Some great information, great things for people to think about as we approach award season, and do's and don'ts, and hydration. That's key.
Mm-hmm. Very important. Thank you,
thanks
Peter.
again. That's better.